we do a regular podcast on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time on YouTube. And I'm Clyde Hall, an elder statesman of geekery, as it says. We have Elaine Haygood along, and Joe D. McPhee, and all three of us were part of the ongoing show. So, Elaine, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would, please.
Oh, okay. I am author of The Enslaved. I have two short comics that are out in the Earth Dream anthology. One is called Whale, which is in the first book, and the other one is called Old Dogs, which is in Earth Dream 2. I am currently getting ready to release my first full-length comic called And the Coming of Nighttime, which is a sci-fi horror fic, and that's coming out in February.
And DC Chen says, "Yay, Elaine!" DC. Okay. Joe D. McPhee, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a publisher here, a small press publisher. I published 3 titles as of right now. I published Amazonia, Primetime Saturday Night, as well as AWF here. And I'm kind of sort of like the, if I could say, the producer of Comic Book Spectrum in light of Brian K. Morris handing me the reins as of last year. So it's been an adventure.
And I'm Clyde Hall, and Elder Statesman of Geekery is a title that I came up with because I was getting older. I was going to conventions, and a lot of the people I was seeing and meeting, friends I was making, were younger than me. And somebody said, was like, "Well, you're like an ambassador for comic books." And I was like, "Yeah, I could do that." So I'm not the oldest. I'm just one of many Elder Statesmen of Geekery, but I embrace the title. I do comic book reviews every week. You're my plug. I have done some cosplay. My wife and I, we do Mom and Pa Kent. This is kind of a Silver Age version. So
I would save that for our show.
Yeah, Superman.
I was told by somebody that you should cosplay a particular character, but I would save it for our show later.
Okay. But we like to do some of the support characters for the Superman celebration, and that's one pair of characters that we have done before. But I do besides doing comic book reviews for Comic Book Spectrum, I am at comicsbeat.com. I do the reviews there at The Beat. And also I am a writer. I do mostly so far I've worked at Stormgate Press for New Pulp anthologies with short stories and things like their Pulp Reality series. So you can check that out at www.stormgatepress.com. Or you can just look down here for my Amazon authors link. So, but we're here today as part of the Multiverse FunRaiser to raise funds for comic books for kids. That is a group, it's a charity that distributes, buys, puts together, distributes comic books to kids that are going through really rough medical treatments in hospitals in the United States and Canada. So it's a really good cause, and the whole weekend has been dedicated to raising funds for it. So you see the scroll at the bottom of the screen down there. You can go on there and donate, and we would urge you, please do that. But what we're doing today, yes, thank you, Joe. What we're doing today is we're looking at graphic novels. That could be a collected trade or anything of that sort that we think is good enough because it meant something to us personally, or we enjoyed the characters involved, or just the whole project was great, to go on a special greatest of all time shelf in your home. If you don't have a greatest of all time graphic novel shelf on your home, you should get one. Oh, online comic books. I mean, nothing wrong with reading stuff online, but when the power goes out and you got your little flashlight, you still got the comic books on your shelf to read. So we're going to be looking at some that we think are, worthy of sitting up there alongside stuff like Watchmen, Mouse, some of those graphic novels that really, really resonate. DC Chen, I have two.
Yep.
And there's Crayley McDonald. Hi, Crayley. And the Phoenix Sisters. So here's what let's do. We each have a book that we have talked about. So why don't we discuss it? Each one of us discuss the book that they like. And then if we have time at the end, we may go through some of because it was not an easy process, right? We all
Yeah.
had other books with several, so we might
Oh.
mention them briefly. Just talking about them to use up the rest of the time. But so one at a time, we'll just go around the panel and we'll talk about what books we think meant something very special to us, and we'd like to see that it find a home in other people's hearts too. So, Elaine, would you like to begin?
Sure. Hi. Again, I'm Elaine Haygood, and I'm going to be discussing the Onward Bound series of books, specifically the first book, Once Upon a Time in Roughside. This is written by DC Chen, who's a friend of mine. DC was one of the first comic book guys I met when I came onto Facebook. And he actually, along with Joe and a few others, encouraged me. There's my girl, Serrata Blue. Yay. Encouraged me to consider getting into comics. And I will forever owe him a world of thanks and a debt. And I want to talk about this book because it fits the parameters of what we're discussing, and it is a family-friendly book. This is something that for kids 12 or 14 plus, they can read and enjoy. Now, I'm going to start with DC's own blurb on the back of the book because I love this. Down in the depths of the city, where the scoundrels and hooligans roll, there's no grace, no mercy, no pity, as despair and hope fight for your soul. Baby, welcome to Roughside. In the city of St. Grace, I screwed up. I got the name wrong. I am all Graves. St. Graves. I'm a horrible person, DC. It's okay to hate me now. Which is a frontier town. Now, one of the things you have to know about this book is DC has done a very masterful thing. He decided that he wanted to write a rootin' tootin' shootin' Western, but he combined it with a little steampunk and D&D and Tolkien. So you have humans, you have elves, you have dwarves, and you got orcs and goblins all together in this frontier town. And unfortunately, the orcs and goblins, nobody thinks that well of them, but they are contributing members of the society. With humans and elves kind of battling for, who's top dog. What I love about this series is I am never going to get through this, DC, if you don't stop.
Dwarf shotgun.
Yes, there is a dwarf with a shotgun and some really cool magic bullets. But the book concerns itself with its main character is Rad Risk, who is an orphan. He's 15 years old and he's living on the streets of Roughside. Now, Roughside is it's the darker face of St. Graves. St. Graves is where all the, people who can afford to live decently live. Whereas Roughside it's a collection of rogues, thieves, dastardly individuals, and folks who are just everyday folks who can't afford to do better than where they are. DC, though, I love Rad. He is a lovable rogue. He's 15 years old. He ran away from an orphanage because the mother was, she's a little tough. But he is a thief, but he's a thief with heart. And he has a sense of integrity, a sense of what's right and wrong. And what I love about this book, without being preachy, DC talks about how sometimes the family you end up with isn't the one you're born into, because sometimes the one you're born into, they cast you out or you don't know who they were. They're the people who you meet along the way, the ones whose their values meet yours, their hearts touch yours, and vice versa. And luckily for young Rad, he is not alone. One of his best friends is Giovanni, who is a brawler. And we actually get introduced to Giovanni whacking the crap out of a Nork, which was really fun. And it's, it starts with him dealing with just what it is to be life for a young teen boy on the street trying to make his way. Um, Unfortunately, it's not enough to be smart and cunning and a touch sweet. There are always going, especially for a place like Roughside, there are always going to be those who try to exert their control. Um, this particular story deals with, in a world of lies and deceit, the truth is a very dangerous thing, even for those who you would normally think of as the upstanding people. And it gives you an idea of what it means to be a person of integrity. That when it's balls to the walls, who is the one who stands up for what's right and tries to do the best for everybody. I love this story, and DC's book I love. The artwork is a little simple, but that's okay. It's okay that it's simple. He's put in some interesting tricks. Let me see if I can figure it out. Where and you guys know I'm horrible at this. And as you can see, he's very it's very sort of manga-esque in the style and layouts and stuff. But it's interesting because when you're dealing with the main part of the city, the panels are brighter. When Rad is dealing with his friends Trace and Giovanni, the panels are lighter. But when you get into Roughside and you start getting into the machinations of what's going on and who's doing what, the panels get a little darker. They get a little shadier. So, which is a very anime thing. It's a very thing for anime and manga. And I think DC does a really good job of this. And he also points out some of the shadier aspects of life without getting into graphic descriptions. There is action in the book, but you don't have, I didn't do this. So, I would have like body parts and blood and, a werewolf going, rah, 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 rah. And DC, you get the fact that there's action. Giovanni is a brawler. Orcs don't keep him down for long. And I love that about him. Trace is a street magician. And it's interesting because he puts that extra in that you find out that Giovanni is a human, but he speaks Dwarvish very well. And while Trace is a street magician, she's got a few tricks up her sleeves that even the elf mage that she goes up against didn't see coming. And he got me because, dude, you put the information right in front of me. And I swear, when it came time for that thing to happen, I was like, dang, he told me and I still didn't get it. So kudos, DC. I give this book 9 Vivian heads because my favorite character, Sarada Blue, she doesn't show up in this book. He'd have got 10 if Sarada had been in that book, but he did give Sarada her own book. So, I'm happy about that. And he let me do the first bit of fan art I ever did was based on Sarada, and he didn't threaten to come to my house and kill me. So, and he's been a big supporter of mine. So yes, I highly recommend the Onward Bound series. You can get it in Kindle and you can buy physical copies via Amazon. So you can get this book and get under the covers and with your little flashlight and enjoy it and have some points where you're like, "Ooh, wow, okay," and yet not be too scared. And parents, yes, there is some action in the book, but like I said, this is not a bloody, gory book. And DC is a man of faith, and I respect him as I do my bro Clyde, dude. So he does not allow the characters to use really indecent language. He keeps it as clean as possible. He keeps it as family friendly possible. And I would just recommend, go buy these dang books.
Okay, very good. And yeah, that's one of the things that I like when it is for young readers. I mean, I have read some stuff that I'm like, really? What is the age limit on it? Oh, really? It goes deeper than, it's kind of that YA stuff of, adults are reading this. I know why. Look at this stuff. It can get really out of hand. So I applaud that.
And Rad, he's a young rogue. So yes, he's gotta you got a while.
Good role model.
You got a while. But Rad is a rogue, so he likes the ladies.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't, and he has his quips with Trace and whatnot, but it doesn't get into being. I mean, I've seen things on primetime TV that were like, oh my God, okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't hit into that. You don't see people, yes, he does talk about there's an area where people go for their carnal pleasures, but you don't see, people standing with bits of their bodies out and stuff like that. Like I said, it's one of the things I really love about his writing. It's stories that people can get into, and you think it's one thing on the surface, but as you start reading it, you start finding these deeper layers. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so yeah, well done, DC.
Nice. Okay. All right. Joe, would you like to go next?
Yes. Okay. I'm going to follow instructions here. So I'm going to leave my honorable mentions to the end.
Okay.
The graphic novel that I'm going to talk about is one that I have done papers on. There have been many printings of this, and I will always suggest get the either first printing or second printing, because those are the most authentic to how the story is supposed to go. The last printing of it was done in a expanded director's cut, which I didn't like because it took the point of view of one of the characters in this graphic novel's point of view as she was looking back on events. Now, to give you kind of a heads up of what I'm talking about here, if you have ever read the X-Men and you want to get into the X-Men, this is the graphic novel that you need to pick up, because it has the heart of the whole entire series. Whether if you want to get X-Men 1 from 1963, if you got an X-Men 1 from 1993, if you got one of the later volumes of X-Men, if you ever want what the core of the X-Men is really about, there's no other story than God Loves, Man Kills. And the reason I hold this book to its theme here is because you don't have to know any of the villains. You don't have to know any of the heroes or heroes per se and what they can do. The concept of what the X-Men is about is here. The overall villain to the story is unique. There have been offshoots of this villain that has been done in movies. Yes, they have done an offshoot of this villain in, I believe it was X2. But the whole fact of the matter is, this story is truly the heart of the mission of the X-Men, to get to the point where they're finally accepted by all. And it's a great story by Chris Claremont, who to me is like one of the greatest comic book writers of all time. I will hold him to the same esteem of like a Grant Morrison or Jack Kirby. It's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that Claremont and the X-Men, you can't go wrong. To get into the crux of it here, I would suggest to parents that this is a PG-13 type book. I would not, give it to like a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old. It would be like a storybook time to sit to read together, because a lot of the themes that's in here would need to be talked about. It's not a easy read as far as scenery is concerned here, because you will have to explain why certain things are done a certain way to understand if I could say, the atmosphere that the story is trying to capture. Now, what is God Loves Man Kill about? It is about a pastor who goes on this televangelist campaign called the Stryker campaign. The villain is named William Stryker, who has a thing about the impending changes to humanity because of quote unquote mutations that is happening to people. So as this campaign, which is a very religious campaign because it gets into religion as a whole here, he's up here saying, well, God has turned to us as humans to, repent for our ways. And as people becomes more and more mutated, we are actually becoming the evil of which is stated in the Bible. That's kind of paraphrasing where he's going with this. Now, mind you, he's using this televangelistic campaign to build a machine that is able to detect mutants. Now, the X-Men are pretty much monitoring the situation, and when they find out about this machine, they go in to investigate. But what makes this book stand out more so here is that the hero of this story is not an X-Men. I'm not going to say who is the actual hero because I want you guys to read it here. But it talks a lot about how people can use things like religion as a weapon. It talks about the conditions of people in general and how it's okay to be different. And it speaks volumes in that aspect here, especially if you're in like your teen years, that it's okay to be different. It's okay to be unique. It's okay to have a unique skill or ability and not to be afraid of it. And some of the things that I want to talk about here, as like I won't talk about some of the scenes here, but one in particular that I have to make mention here is that when they talked about William's origin and the reason why he went on this religious campaign, it was dealing with something that was personal to him, and that was the birth of his son. It turns out that with him being a normal human and his wife being a normal human, he gave his wife, while he was in the military, gave birth to a mutant son. I won't go beyond that because the book talks about how he saw his son at the time of his birth. And I won't tell you what he did. But overall, this book right here should sit on most people's shelves as a kind of like it's like if you got to have an X-Men book, this is the book to have, because you can relate to any X-Men fan with this book here. Any X-Men fan. And like I said, it's been reprinted several times over. I believe it's in like its 9th or 10th printing. That's how strong of a story this is. And it's an evergreen story. I believe every generation could relate to this story here.
Yeah.
So on that note, this is one of the few graphic novels that I would give a 10 out of 10.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah. High praise.
I got it when it first came out, and then it got lost. But I have Messiah Complex, and that's also pretty decent.
Messiah Complex does not hold up like this one.
There are things, yeah, it's not quite, but if you can't get your hand on God Loves Man Kills, there's another one though, and I can't remember what it's called, but I've got it in my bookcase and I can't get it. But they've done some good ones. They have done some good ones.
Now, if you're into prose, the other book that I would suggest is called the Sanctuary series. But that's prose. That's Claremont doing X-Men in prose.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
How did that come out? In hardbacks or paperbacks or both? Or?
Paperback books.
Okay. I think now that you say that, I think I've seen the cover. I haven't read it, but
it's a 3-book set.
Okay.
It's called the Sanctuary series.
Oh, okay.
Neat.
Is there any artwork in it like in the Redeemer? Mm-mm. Okay, so it's different from the Redeemer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I guess it's my turn. And
Hi.
Gold
I
standard time. Yay.
kind of
Round
gave
of
it away
applause.
here with the shirt, but my pick for the GOAT graphic novel that should go on everybody's shelf is a rather recent one, but one that also very timely, and it is called Superman Smashes the Klan.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and that is what it looks like, and it's kind of there we go, kind of a small, um, compact version, which is nice. It is for younger readers. Um, it is. Let's see here. So this came out as a 3-issue miniseries in 2019, and it was then collected into a DC graphic novel for young adults the year after. Um, Superman Smashes the Klan is written by Gene Luen Yang, based on the 1946 Adventures of Superman radio show's 16-part adventure, The Clan of the Fiery Cross. It's illustrated by Garahiru, which I thought was a person. It's actually a duo. Um, it is Chiafuyu Sasaki and Naoko Kawano. And these two women that did the color and the designing and the artwork give it a little bit of a manga feel, but not over the top. It's very much a Superman story, but I love the little. Again, it's for younger readers. It's a simplistic kind of style, but it's very, very nice. Um, and the letters are by Janice Chang. So we were talking about other books that we thought about recommending, and one of mine was The Shadow Hero. As you can see, that's written by Gene Luen Yang too. And a friend recommended this back around 2014, and I got it, and because he knows I love obscure characters. Well, you don't get much more obscure than the Green Turtle. Okay,
Green Turtle.
The Green Turtle was not long for this world as far as the comic book character. But what a great character. And my first exposure to Gene Luen Yang's writing, and I was solidly hooked. So also, though, it had a deeper impact on me. And that impact is finding out about the creator of the Green Turtle character. It was created by a Chinese American artist, Chu F. Hing, and originally it was published in 1944. Hing portrayed the character as part of the war effort, battling the Japanese alongside Chinese partisans, all commanded by an American general. Yang provided a modern origin story for this character because it didn't really have one, and the story was great, and it was exciting, and at times quite humorous. Now, the Green Turtle also introduced me to a brick wall that I had seldom encountered in comics. Talking with other comics fans online, I mentioned the Green Turtle graphic novel and the status it has as possibly the first Asian American superhero. And very quickly, I got pushback. Well, that's just allegedly. In the original stories, he was white. And that was, he was pale in 1944 appearances because, and Yang talks about this in interviews and stuff, that it was the era of yellow peril, heightened even more because of the dehumanizing artistic approach that most of the comic book industry took regarding Japanese imperial soldiers who were our wartime enemies. Mm-hmm. Hing could say that the character was Asian American and patriotic, and he could also show him battling Japanese forces right alongside Chinese freedom fighters. But I always figured, unlikely that they're going to let him ink the character in a way that made him look Asian. Later years, Hing recalled pretty much the same thing. He wanted to make the character clearly Chinese in race and features, but the publisher insisted that he look white because there'd be no market for an Asian superhero. So when this was pointed out to the naysayers, that old 1944 line rose up again. Green Turtle was white. This is just race bending. Yeah. And it opened my eyes to exactly how set in stone some views on superheroes are. I mean, we all know comic book fandom, it can be twitchy, But this was, I don't know, it just really puzzled me. So it really brought the idea of race home in the way that people insist sometimes when it comes to their entertainments and comic books especially. So Green Turtle finally being shown for the Asian American superhero that his creator intended is what Gene Luen Yang and Sonny Liu did in the Shadow Hero miniseries and the collected trade paperback. But even today, you'll still have difficulty saying that, unless you say possibly the first Asian American superhero, and then expect somebody to go, oh no. But Yang handled it. He did a great story. It was a lot of fun. It was true to Hing's original vision, and I enjoyed it. I've also enjoyed his work on DC titles like The Terrifics and The Monkey Prince.
Ooh.
So when I heard Yang was, adapting the famous 1946 Superman radio drama into comic book form for the first time, oh yeah, I was there. I was in. I wanted to read this. Quick reference: the Clan of the Fiery Cross, spelled with C's and not K's. In 1946, post-World War II America was finding its footing as the servicemen returned home, many using their GI Bill benefits for home loans and college education. And for some, the fall of the Axis powers, Americans, some of them had, America had been united against a common enemy for 4 years, and now it wasn't. And for some people, that meant, oh, there's a vacuum here. Having a common enemy is unifying and clarifying, and sometimes it's even career building and profitable. I mean, a few years later, the communist Red Scare would prove these points. But in the meantime, hate was always an emotion that people could rely on. So in 1946, the real life Knights of the Ku Klux Klan were recruiting and expanding into the northern reaches of the U.S. where they had not gone very much before, as well as reaffirming their grip in the South. And their business was really good. A writer living in the South named Stetson Kennedy watched the Klan rising up against, again, they'd almost gone dormant after they had been really violent and outspoken about prohibition. And when that all crumbled down, they kind of got quiet again. But now they were on the rise. And he went to meetings posing as a prospective new member so he could write about, basically exposing it for newspapers, only to find that nobody was interested in publishing those stories very much. They would rather publish just, a report of there was a Klan gathering and they burned a cross, and just to report this happened, not to look at it from an internal perspective. No undercover journalists or anything like that. They wanted to have it from a distance. But also, when he was reading the accounts, there's a mystique. It made it seem almost attractive, this forbidden, strange ceremony. And that even made him more upset. So he had no traction going into talking to newspaper folks about it. But he did have contacts that worked in radio. And they knew people that were connected to a very popular show called Adventures of Superman. And the showrunners, Robert and Jessica Maxwell, along with the DC publishing higher-ups, were facing a problem at the time. The war had always given them plenty of bad guys for the Man of Steel to fight, from Nazis and Japanese saboteurs and slippery spies. But by 1946, that was all over with, and they had nobody to pit him against, except maybe some of the characters from the comic books, and those were pretty fantastic, they thought, to put on radio. They were also getting a lot of pressure. Speaking of things ahead of the time, when American propaganda was being put out in the Superman titles, for the war effort, and early on, child psychologists thought, well, this is a harmless pastime. But now, after the war, they're starting to get blowback from child psychologists going, there really should be something better to teach children than punching bad people in the face, which is what your people do a lot. Your superheroes, all they really do is just bash people. So they had a lot of problems with how we're going to continue this show. But Kennedy, when he presented his story ideas with the Klan as Superman's opponents, had the right tone at the right time. So the Triple K was fictionalized into a group called the Clan of the Fiery Cross, all C's, which protected DC and company from any kind of legal actions, yet plainly represented pointy-masked, white-robed members of as as very recognizable analogs for the real thing. And the story presented involves, in the radio show, involves Dr. Wong Lee. He is an Asian American being promoted to the Metropolis Health Department as a bacteriologist. He moves his family to Metropolis, and his son Tommy joins a local baseball team sponsored by a boys' club-like organization called Unity House. When the team's first-string pitcher, Chuck Riggs, gets accidentally beamed by Tommy Lee as the newcomer auditions for a pitching spot, Chuck makes unkind comments regarding Tommy's race and status as an outsider. Well, the team manager is Daily Planet Cub reporter Jimmy Olsen, and he kicks Chuck off of the team for unsportsmanlike conduct. When Chuck complains to his uncle Matt about the matter and how the Lees have just recently become part of the Metropolis community, the older man says such are the reasons that he and others have organized into a secret society, one that won't put up with foreigners taking good jobs from real Americans or claiming good positions in youth-based baseball leagues either. So he introduces Chuck to the mysterious, secretive organization called the Clan of the Fiery Cross. They're dedicated to using their intimidation and influence to manipulate events in Metropolis, and they're not above resorting to violence if it achieves their goals. So the Klan burns a cross in front of the Lee's home with a warning, leave town or else worse is going to happen to your family. That brings the Daily Planet reporters Lois Lane and Clark Kent into the picture, and naturally, it leads to Superman opposing the Klan and their one race, one color, one religion ideology, spelling the Klan's downfall. So in real life, the drama hit the Klan right between their pointy-headed eyes. The KKK urged their members to boycott the show's sponsor, Kellogg's Pep cereal, which, yeah, they were right here.
We actually have some box.
Oh my goodness!
And they promoted Superman very heavily, and so Kellogg's, being good business people and having this laid at their feet that they should abandon this program that cast the KKK in a negative light, their response was basically, and they bought more ad time. You had people that were working at the radio stations, especially in the South, going, look, they would call Klan people they knew that were in the Klan going, cut down the fiery rhetoric. This show's making you look like a bunch of morons. But they doubled down. They weren't gonna back down. Of course, yes. And the people that were warning them, they weren't wrong, because the program did not pull any punches. They got rid of any secret society mystique, and they basically pushed this bigotry and intolerance out into the cold light of day. Characters in the show dared to say things like the Klan mantras, and their ideas sounded like all the propaganda of the Nazis that they just spent 4 years in many American lives defeating. Personal stories emerged of men returning home from KKK meetings to find their kids, one of them wearing a cape towel as Superman, beating up the bad guys of this play fest, wearing white bed sheets as the Klan people, and their wives looking at them, just shaking their heads, going, I can't believe, that you're going along with this kind of thing, having heard their portrayal on the radios and knowing that to some degree or another, this is the crowd that their spouses were following. So along with investigations and work by activists and rights workers and lawyers addressing the same matters, the radio show, a fictional character called Superman, set the real life Klan back on its heels. The bottom dropped out of it in the most important ways. Their memberships just folded. Their funding went away. Their political influence vanished. It was a great example how, as strong as hate can be, an equally motivating emotion can be shame. So I have since listened to the radio drama itself, and it's impressive how much of the original dialogue, the cutting kind that just doesn't hold anything back, the kind of thing that is usually only spoken at nighttime and under masks, is exposed. And Yang, he keeps all that in his treatment. He is simply expanding the storyline and adding modern perspectives. But the story is still set in 1946. And if you wonder how it can be set in 46 and yet have a modern perspective, it does it better than you might expect. Mostly it's due to Yang's experience as an Asian American. He and his family have experienced racism firsthand, and that is grafted into the storyline with much more than a previously shallow understanding of the Lee family's side of the equation. The things that shaped their outlooks as they became the focus of conflict between a godlike being that Dr. Lee doesn't entirely trust, this Superman guy, and this hate group trying to run them, he and his family, back to where they belong. In the radio show, the Lee family is a catalyst for the events that follow, and they are firmly secondary characters. Well, the main conflict is Superman against the Klan, and also the inner conflict of the young boy named Chuck Riggs. He is dealing with the worldview of his uncle, who's his only male role model, and it's inferred that his father died in the war. And that clashes against what he learns from his idol, Superman, and against the firsthand experiences he has with Tommy as they become friends. So Chuck is grateful to his uncle for taking his mother and himself into his home after the death of his father. And it feels like a betrayal not to go along with that, with what his uncle so fervently believes in, the thems of the world. But he also has to grapple. Chuck's a young boy. He's got to grapple with matters of family and loyalty and ultimately personal integrity. And Yang, he expands on all these pressures in the turmoil that Chuck experiences with insight and deep empathy. In Yang's treatment, the Lee children, Tommy and his sister Roberta, they have roles as prominent as Chuck does. Tommy is happy to be leaving their first home in Chinatown for the suburbs of Metropolis, while Roberta, she is sad and nervous. Everything she knows is in Chinatown, all of her friends, all the places she's familiar with, and she feels like such an outsider, and she doesn't have her brother's bravado to get over it. But this gives her a great insight into Superman himself, and she helps him overcome his own personal obstacles as the story goes on. So Yang can honestly explore coping mechanisms of Tommy and Roberta trying to make new friends when no one else looks like you or comes from your culture. Because like Tommy, he uses humor to deflect comments and views which aren't really meant to be hurtful, but they're also insensitive. At one point, he calls his whole family wontons, which gets a lot of laughs from their white friends that they're making. But Roberta is mortified that he would lower himself and his family just to fit in. And I think that Yang has experienced exactly that kind of thing. For her part, Roberta is much more reserved, and she's trying to keep her head down and just avoid trouble, which makes her come off to these new kids that she's at school with as being kind of aloof and snooty. Later on, when they begin to form friendships, they all go out to the movies together to get better acquainted, and she finds some friends there from Chinatown that she knows. And she says, "Hey, can I sit with you?" And they go, "No, why don't you go sit with your new white friends?" So we're seeing a very leveled playing field about how racism works from very different perspectives, thanks to Yang. He has the insight and the writing talent to explore not only the topical essence of racism here, but all of its layers. And it's really for a young, and he puts it in a way that the young reader can understand. You add all that in and you get plenty of Superman legendary stuff too. You get the Superman cartoon, the Fleischer cartoon symbol. You get an appearance by an Atom Man villain, just like the Kirk Allen classic serial from that era. We get an encounter with Kryptonite, which was originally introduced in the radio show, so it's fitting. It's part of Yang's expanded storyline to make the Fiery Cross clan a much bigger threat to Superman than he was necessarily in the radio show. And we get a fresh approach to Superman as an alien. It's a story that's all about dealing with otherness and alienation. It brings yet another layer to the table in Superman's case, because in the story, the Kents were originally torn between showing Clark items that they found with him and keeping them or keeping them a secret for fear that probing too deeply into where exactly their adopted son came from might get government interest and public panic and result in him being taken away. Then Clark begins showing his superpowered side, and the Kents are even more worried. In the end, there's an incident where Clark's being bullied, and he levitates, and his eyes go all glowy. And, this brings the kids that see it, two of them, the bullies, they go tell their mom, and she raises all kinds of cane. And so before long, the Smallville sheriff's out there talking to the Kents and looking at Clark because they say he's demon-possessed. So good-naturedly, the sheriff says, well, you seem to be pretty human to me, Clark. Besides, they're always reporting something. They see UFOs all the time and stuff like that. So it's smoothed over. But the incident leads to Clark and his parents setting standards for acting normal. Even after he decides to become Superman, his approach is to do human-like things and not try anything too alien, even though he and the Kents suspect that that's what he is. So humans are strong. He's just a little stronger. Humans can jump. Well, he can jump a lot farther. Humans are fast. Well, he's a lot quicker. In effect, knowing at least subconsciously that he has other stranger abilities, he doesn't use them. Instead, he passes for human. And, marginalized people can recognize and understand that tendency intimately. Passing for just another human, and one that the public, they speculate about how the Superman got his powers. Was he raised in a lost monastery in Tibet and learned all their secrets? Or did he take a super soldier serum made by army scientists? He suspects, again, that he's probably not from this world, but he's happy to let them speculate and not have to worry about it. Not until Roberta reaches out and helps him confront the truth, as well as his own potential. Yang showed us why Superman once only leapt tall buildings, but eventually, and in this story, he finds reasons to fly. And finally, without softening any of the blows, the radio drama aimed at organized hate. Yang lands even more subtle but relatable jabs against those fiery cross-cutters. The membership consists of people fed a doctrine of their superiority to lesser people, enough that they believe that they are going to take on Superman. We're a big group. We will take you on physically, and we'll win because there's more of us than there are of you. To which he has a 2-word reply that just gets you, it makes me chuckle every time I read it. He's like, doubt it. And they don't. As for the clan leadership, they aren't so delusional nor so dedicated to the ideals of their noble cause, quote unquote, as their highest echelon muckety-muck says in Yang's treatment, and it's also reflected from the radio drama, there's always profit in hate. Recurring membership dues, pledge drives, merchandising, publications is all a cottage industry, and those at the top are raking in a bundle. And the higher purpose that they serve is fleecing the rubes. Matt Riggs is jeopardizing all that, as Uncle Matt here, by making a very public battle between the clan and the Daily Planet and Superman, and it's costing them money. And it's all called out. It's a truth layer that is not to be ignored, especially if we can look at modern society and see parallels.
I was going to mention that. It's like, it definitely sounds kind of like what people are going through today. That sort of, hate sells.
Yes. So
hate sells.
Superman Smashes the Klan is made for young readers, but it has lessons, I think, for all ages. Its roots are in 1940s pop culture. And that not only shows that they were thinking outside the box during that time, but it also shows that comic books and their characters have a voice when it comes to culture and society, and they always have. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, when they're done well, as Yang and his creative team have done here, they drive our conscience in better understanding of the ongoing tapestry comprising the human race, and how an immigrant from an alien world, a doomed planet, sharing his unique perspective can actually make better human beings of us all.
Yeah. Looks like we got an update here.
Oh, all right. 476 on our fundraising right now. But again, if you would like to donate, putting comic books in the hands of kids that are in the hospital with serious illnesses. This is what comic books for kids it's all about. And that's what our whole weekend has been about that. And we are continuing to raise the funding right now. So please, if you have a moment, if you have the funds, go down there, put some into the kitty so that we can put more comic books in the hands of more kids in both the United States and Canada. Okay, so what were some other books that you guys had thought about?
Okay.
Oh, I want to say real quick.
Yeah.
If you can't afford it, because I know what it's like when you don't have money and you want to do something, go to my page, go to Joe's, go to Clyde's. We all have the little thingy there. Share it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
Say what you felt about this. Say what you think about the organization, what they do. Look into the organization, and then pass it along. Boost that signal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you do as much help as putting in money when you boost that signal, because you never know who you may reach, who can look at that and go, oh yeah, okay, where's my checkbook, let me get my card. So,
speaking of reachable people, there's Carl Witzman. Hi, Carl.
Yep. Hi, Carl.
hey Carl.
Yep.
Okay.
Awareness helps.
Okay.
So oh wow.
But yes, good point. Do that. Also,
Okay, I got two honorable mentions.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
And I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible here. The first one we talked about a little bit on Comic Book Spectrum, and that is the Incredible Hulk and Thing here. This is the Jim Starlin, Bernie Wrightson graphic novel here. And for those who don't know about this one, this is an epic romp here. This is the one that I would say you could give to like an 8-year-old or 9-year-old, minus the cartoony violence. If you're not into the cartoony violence and everything, it is a good pickup for them as a whole here, because the whole idea of the story is that the Hulk and Thing gets whisked away to this one realm because of the simple fact that they were looking for a way to become human. Like at least Bruce Banner was looking for a way to become human again, and Ben Grimm looking a way to become human, not be the Thing anymore. So they go, they get whisked away to this one realm, and they have an opportunity to do exactly that if they do so, these certain, if I could say, quests. Mm-hmm. And at the very end, they succeed in all these quests and everything, and they get their rightful reward. They can have anything their hearts desire, only for, without a second thought, without wasting any breath, for the Hulk to say, Hulk hungry, Hulk tired, Hulk want to go home. I would save the ending for you here. But I must admit, I laughed very hard to see that big pile of cheeseburgers as he was eating them when he got back. I mean, this is classic. This is classic old school, I would say, 1960s, 1970s Marvel Universe writing. Great Jim Starlin, Bernie Wrightson story together. Now, the last one is not as, this is another one where I would have to say that this is like a PG-13, only because of certain scenes and certain tones in there. Not that it's bad, but again, you have to sit down and explain it to younger people a little bit more. And this is JLA, A League of One. And people may have slept on this Christopher Moeller book, but this one here is one of the few reasons why Wonder Woman is the shit. Excuse my language, but she is the woman.
Hey, I love me some Wonder Woman.
This is the reason. Now, the reason why I say this is PG-13. Oh,
Joe, you guys
Hi, Mr.
go.
Weiss.
Dude, you guys go. You guys go. I am loving this. I didn't want to pop in. This is so amazing.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So the reason why this one is so that I have to put the PG-13 on it is because of what Wonder Woman does here. Wonder Woman, and the cover doesn't do it justice, because you see that all the other male heroes kind of wounded. It's not because they got wounded or anything. Wonder Woman came up with a plan to remove all of the rest of the Justice League out of harm's way, whether by tricking them into believing that there was no crisis, putting them in a different peril, or straight up capturing them and just sending them away for her to deal with the overall threat. Because if any one of the other members of the Justice League was there, they would have been in harm's way. There was no way for them to be able to stop the final threat that was there. And after it was all said and done, the last fight between Wonder Woman and Superman explained it all. As far as Clark saying to her, it's like, if the roles were in reversed, you would have jumped down my throat for not allowing you to help. And made Wonder Woman realize, like, yes, I would have. But the difference here is that you would have done it out of ego. I did it out of protecting you and the rest of the world, showing you love and compassion. Not because I'm the strongest being out there. I kept you out of harm's way. And Clark turns back around and is like, but in the same aspect, even if it was out of ego, we still feel the same way about you. We still have to protect you as well.
You guys,
very good book.
I got to tell you, you guys, I've been watching this and I caught myself so entranced. Elaine, I'm reading comments. I want to be like Elaine when I grow up. And I was going to say, I wanted to figure out, how do I do the thumbs up? Me too. But I already, so when I grow up, I want to be.
You like haven't seen me on this show. You don't want to be me.
No. But, Joe, it was about a half hour ago. You showed a graphic novel, and you got it. I to this day remember reading the end of that. I still own that book. I own the reprint of that book, and I still consider that to be one of the most incredible pieces of fiction, comic fiction ever written, for the allegory, for the messaging, for the everything that's said that isn't said on those pages. So I'm so thrilled that you shared that. Clyde, Clyde, as an elder statesman, what you've done here with these two is phenomenal. I wish this one could go on for hours.
I'm older than Clyde.
Yeah.
No one older than Clyde. Okay?
No, I am so old, I used to diaper Methuselah.
Oh my God. Okay.
I walked the crypt keeper to school.
Okay, we got the dirt analogy going. I could go toe to toe with you on those with the gray hair on those old stuff. But listen, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for an incredible hour, Clyde. Where you took this, and this was just so enlightening, and I really appreciate all you guys for sharing your insight and giving up part of your weekend to help our organization, help the kids, help the
Thank you for all you do for those kids.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I've said it many times. I may be the talking head, but it doesn't happen without great people like all of you and the people who have been donating. I would have popped in, but the last couple hours, I believe it or not, I was actually packing boxes for kids. And I wanted to rush home once I heard you guys, it was like, I almost missed it. I was so entranced. And oh my God, the show's over and the segment's over. So I just had to pop in and just thank you guys for a really insightful hour. Really.
Thank you for having us.
Come on Comic Book Spectrum. Let's set up a time. Come on Comic Book Spectrum. We can talk more.
Listen, people have been telling me I'm on the spectrum for a long time. So
hey, we do have to go. We're cutting into cosplay Cinderella.
And my oldest is threatening to eat my youngest. So
no, we don't want that. No.
Okay.
Yeah, we got our 60-second wrap it up box going.
Thank you for tuning in. Join us at Comic Book Spectrum on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Central on Facebook. And until next time, we will see you at the comic book shop.
Bye.
The Multiverse Fundraiser is partnering with Comic Books for Kids to raise money for their cause. Their mission is to provide comic books to children in hospitals and cancer centers across the United States, Canada, and the UK. We believe in the importance of providing stories that promote hope and bravery to kids who are facing things that are scarier than any supervillain. And we truly believe in this cause. To donate, you can either go to our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/The Multiverse Fundraiser or directly to comicbooksforkids.org.
The Multiverse Fundraiser would like to thank our sponsors: Earth Dog Studios, Clobberin Comics, The Art of Brian Rodman, Studio Moonfall, Elusive Comics, and of course, the Phoenix Sisters Entertainment Network for hosting this event. Learn how to support these businesses on the MVFR website.